So I got like Final Fight, Contra, of course Mario, and then Castlevania.
That's going to sound bad. I shouldn't say that.
What?
Games suck now. They suck.
Would you like to elaborate on that, Matt?
Let's actually just segue right into that now. So exclusive games, our favorite games. So we already mentioned Pilot Wings. Do you guys want to say anything else about Pilot Wings?
I didn't play it.
Really?
To this day, have not played it.
It's worth the play just because, again, the significance that it had at the time. But it was one of those games that I would love to pop in the console, play for a couple of minutes, go ahead and fly the biplane, fly the rocket belt, go ahead and skydive, and then after a couple of rounds of it, I'd be like, okay, I'm good, and just turn it off and move on. It was never a game that I felt like I needed to play through it to completion.
I think I played it for 10 minutes. And I was like, let's play Super Mario World again.
Well, yeah, Super Mario World's going to hold your attention.
Sure. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the game. I was just like, I'd much rather play Mario World than Pilot Wings. And that's all. I'm not trying to say anything bad about Pilot Wings. It's just, time is valuable.
I don't know if it was Nintendo's intention, but I really think Pilot Wings was a way to help sell the console to the adults, to say, hey, look at the technology. Look at what your kids can do with this machine. So.
For sure. And another title that would definitely help adults want to purchase it was F-Zero, which was, a super fast game at the time. Like the way it used Mode 7, obviously. It was very much, I guess that would have been before anything like that. Was there another game like that back then? I mean, obviously there's racing games, but was there another one that was close to F-Zero? I know
No.
after F-Zero there's a whole bunch, but was there one before then?
No, the fact that the Mode 7, like you mentioned, gave them the ability to do that scaling in the backgrounds, gave them the perception of speed. So there was no game that had that feeling of fast that went with it like F-Zero did. The only downfall was the game was so complex, the way that the tracks were laid out, that they couldn't find a way to squeeze two-player on it. They could only do the one. And I don't know if you guys know the backstory to it, not to jump to another title already, but Super Mario Kart actually came from how do we make F-Zero two-player, and that was create smaller tracks so you could go ahead and have two players on the screen.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I did know that, but I had forgotten about it. I would have totally never remembered that again if you didn't mention it.
I'm full of useless facts.
So am I. It's just the whole remembering part that's hard for me. They're there. They exist. I just need to get a bigger hard drive installed somewhere, so I retain it all.
In the near future, I'm sure that'll happen.
Wes, you got this next one, man.
Oh yeah, this was another title that really made me rush out and buy a Super Nintendo, which was Contra 3, man. Alien Wars. Oh, big Contra fan. And then when I saw that, and because that had the Mode 7, especially when you did the boss fight, because you saw it kind of rotate coming down. Oh, the sound, Contra, all the way. This is probably my favorite Contra.
It's very good.
It's very impressive, yes.
And it's not as hard as the Genesis one, which we're going to get into this in a little while. I probably should talk about
insanely difficult.
Yeah, hardcore is insane.
It is. Yeah, but Contra looked great, sounded great. I can't say anything bad about Contra. I think that was a launch title, wasn't it? Or it was pretty early on if it wasn't a launch title.
It was definitely early. I don't remember.
It was very early.
Okay.
But yeah, the bosses in that game were very impressive. The size and scale of them alone.
Yep.
My favorite was the robots. I think is it the third stage where you have the two of them that attack you and they climb on the walls and whatnot. And then finally the guy breaks through the wall and starts shooting flames at you. I mean, just very impressive game.
Yeah, I think those people who made those games were just like watching like all the 80s movies and were just like, oh, look at these 80s action movies. Let's just make one like that, but not license it. make like Rambo or something without using Rambo's license.
Yeah, I mean that's who your heroes were, right? They were modeled after Schwarzenegger and Stallone.
A classic title, Super Castlevania 4 was there. That out of the old Castlevania games, this is probably the best one. I do like 3 a lot. This is probably a better game. I like the directional thing you can do with the whip, all that fun stuff. I'm really torn between this and 3 though. Three is very good also.
Yeah, Dracula's Curse is a great one, but I love the fact that Super Castlevania 4 is essentially a remake of the first game. They really went
Okay.
back to their roots, and they're like, we're going to give you better gameplay, but we're going to go ahead and give you the same basic story of you working your way through this castle.
Sure.
Yep. It was good. It was good. That was one of the titles that I picked up when I got my Super Nintendo. Because I got like Final Fight, Contra, of course Mario, and then Castlevania.
That's gonna sound bad. I shouldn't say that.
What?
Games suck now. They suck.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Wes just talked about 4 bangers like early on, like legendary games in the beginning of the Super Nintendo. How many legendary games came out in the past 5 years? You can probably count them on one hand. And he just basically, with one hand, talked about the first few months of the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I think nowadays they're more just stuck in a rut. They're just going through the motions, releasing the sequels and the remakes and whatnot that they think are going to go ahead and move items, but they're not focused on actually revolutionizing gameplay anymore. It's just about churning stuff out.
I like new games, but it is so infrequent where I'm like, oh my god, this game is like truly epic. And Wes is like this, all on the SNES
Yeah.
first few months. There you go.
Well, they were all
Crazy.
breaking new ground. In new games' defense, so many things have been done, it's hard to do something new. But
That's
you
a
go
valid
ahead and
point.
you look at the Super Nintendo, Genesis, that generation, what is that, like the 4th generation of consoles, that they were literally breaking new ground because that stuff had never been done before. They had new hardware, new processors, and they were like, let's see if we can pull this off. And so it led to some really amazing gameplay.
True.
That's true. That's very true. Like now it's been there, done that. Okay, it just looks a little bit nicer, but it's the same thing.
Yeah. Every once in a while something surprises me, but it's not often. All right, I'll take this one. Super Mario Kart. This has easily got to be the game I put the most time into. Super Mario World's probably a close second, but my god, this is all I wanted to do once I found out about this game. This is like when I go to my neighbor's house, me and him would hang out, dude. It was just Super Mario Kart all day long, all day long. It doesn't matter if it's race, battle, loved it all. I loved every single thing in that game.
I think it's funny. I feel the exact same way when it comes to looking back on my childhood and playing it. But if I had to rank the Mario Karts now, it's not making it very high up on that list.
I'll give you that. It was. Go ahead, Wes.
I didn't play Super Mario Kart until I didn't play a Mario Kart until 64.
All right.
I mean, that was the next one.
Right. So
that was the next one. It was possibly the best one. Possibly.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I skipped over it. I was like, eh.
I think that was my. If we look at the history of Mario Kart, that's probably like my second or third favorite one.
Yeah, 64 is a great game. But of course, none of them would be there if it wasn't for Super Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And Matt, I'd have to agree. Like, I didn't care if I was doing the circuits, if I was doing a time trial, racing my own ghost, if I was doing battle, which of course battle is only for multiplayer. There's no reason to even try something battle unless you're playing against an actual human opponent. But that stuff was so fun. That could just occupy hours and hours of your time back then.
You didn't need anything else. I mean, you would want other things, but you wouldn't need anything. I don't even know how many hours to dump into that game. It's incalculable. But everybody knows about Mario Kart. What they don't know about is Final Fantasy 4 and 6. Now, what are you saying, Matt? You're crazy. These are legendary RPGs. I don't like RPGs. So Brian and Wes, take it away.
I don't have a lot of experience with 4. 6 was actually my very first Final Fantasy game. And to be honest, I have a lot of memories of my Super Nintendo as a kid. I don't know where I got this game from. I don't know if I bought it. I don't know if, a friend of mine let me swap one of my games for it. I don't know if I stole the damn thing. I just know that I had a copy of Final Fantasy VI, and you want to talk about a game that I put the most hours into? That was probably it. I
Was it
played
4 or
that game
6?
six.
6. Okay.
Six. Yeah, four I didn't play until later on in life. I think the Game Boy Advance version is the first time I ever played four. Um, but oh my gosh, six I absolutely adored. That cast, the storyline, uh, uh, Kefka being one of the most incredible villains ever created for a game. Like I just adored Final Fantasy VI. I had a strategy guide that after I beat the game, I went through and I literally played that page by page, flipping through it, making sure I didn't miss a single thing during my second playthrough. I loved it.
But keep in mind, when they first came out, they were labeled as 2 and 3.
That is true because the Americas did not get
Yep.
what we didn't get 2, 3, or 5 here
Well,
until
yeah,
way later.
that was my next question because I don't know anything about what the hell happened to 5.
Yeah, when the Super Nintendo released Final Fantasy, they were Final Fantasy 2 and then Final Fantasy 3. But
Right.
then years later, after the PlayStation, they went back and kind of put them all back in order.
Sure.
So we got 5, which never actually came out over here.
But why the hell would they skip 5? Like what?
I think, and I could be wrong, I think it was the fact that localization took so
Mhm.
long.
Okay.
That by the time they got done localizing 4, they were like, well, we already got 6. Let's just go ahead and do that one. The Americas won't even notice.
Yep.
So they just figured that they could, pull one over on us and just keep releasing it. I think it's the same reason. Well, we didn't get 2 and 3 because of popularity, because role-playing games were not popular. Matt, you were in the majority. People just did not like them here.
Yep.
I
But
play action role-playing games, so everybody knows. I don't play JRPGs. I can't. I don't like. No.
my wife's the exact same way. She can't touch them. They bore the snot out of her.
I won't get into it. I'm just gonna go ahead. Yeah, Final Fantasy. So next up is Yoshi's Island 2. Or I'm sorry, Yoshi's Island. Oh my god. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Let me say the whole friggin' title, because they couldn't have just called it Super Mario World 2 or just Yoshi's Island. Had to be the
That
whole
is
thing.
completely justified for you botching up that title, because let's be honest, the only reason it's called Super Mario World 2 is so it would be the sequel to one of the best-selling Super Nintendo games. Has nothing to do with the sequel, because it's not. It's a prequel.
No, and it's totally different. It's totally different than Super Mario World. It
It
should have just been
is.
called Yoshi's Island, and that's it.
Yes. That should have been enough. Yoshi was popular enough. I don't think it needed the tag Super Mario World 2.
Yeah.
Yoshi would have sold titles. But beautiful game. That the art style for that game was the idea of doing like that hand drawn almost with a crayon kind of look was inspired. Because when I first saw ads for it, I'm like, that's dumb. Why are they making a game that looks like that? But actually playing it and being immersed in that world, like that's a beautiful thing.
I first played this on the GBA when they re-released it back then, and I was like, "Oh, this game is dope." Never played it back. Well, I didn't have a Super Nintendo back then, but it was a really good game. I don't think. I mean, I know a lot of people really like it. I don't think it's better than Super Mario World. I think it's good. It's different, but I don't think it's better than Super Mario World.
I prefer Super Mario World. If I could change one thing about that game, and I bet you guys already know what it is before I say it, and that's the crying Mario.
Oh my god, you want to rip your brain out of your ear.
That
Horrible.
baby whining over and over again. I love video games, but I'm not the best at platformers. I get hit all the time. And every time that thing cries, oh my gosh, it's so obnoxious.
People should understand how sound. I mean, they obviously know how sound affects you, but they should really think about the long-term effects of sounds like that, like bothering people for the rest of their life. I can hear that baby as soon as you talk about it. It's in my head. Horrible.
People are going to think you inputted the sound into this file so they can hear it when it's just playing in their brains right now.
People
So
who make
crazy.
music like that are so creative and innovative, though. Like, here, I'll give you a very quick example. It's a little off topic. I was playing with my daughter the other day. She has a whale. Okay, a whale. She's never seen Jaws, doesn't know what Jaws is, and I was going din 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 din, and like going after her with the whale, and she's like like screaming and stuff. I'm like, genius. The guy who made the music is genius, you know.
I think they probably made that sound so obnoxious to encourage you not to lose Mario.
Sure, you don't want to lose Mario. The same thing with Sonic drowning. That horrible. Oh
that should be a podcast in and of itself. Make a list of like the 10 top most annoying sounds of video games.
Yeah. There's quite a few. That would be
Noted.
definitely a good topic.
Noted. Noted for next time.
Let's talk about the Super FX chip. Can you guys discuss the differences between this and Mode 7, which I'm sure is quite a bit, but I'll let you guys take that over.
Polygons, basically.
Mhm.
The Super FX chip gave them the ability to actually create 3D graphics on the Super Nintendo before the hardware of the Super Nintendo was able to. So for anyone that doesn't know, it's literally a chip that's on the cartridge itself. It's not in the console. So that's how we were able to get Star Fox
Mhm.
when we did. I mean, and I don't know anyone who doesn't like Star Fox, at least as a series. One of the entries, the entire thing, the original, of course, 64 is the most popular. But if
With
we
good
did
reason.
not have Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, I think that would have been a huge loss to gaming, because that game was just freaking beautiful.
It was like a new way to play like old shoot 'em ups, you know? Like it was
Mhm.
awesome, incredible. And to see that on the Super Nintendo when you first saw it, it was like, "What? How is this
Yeah.
possible on a
Oh,
Super Nintendo?"
we thought it was amazing. You go back and play it now, it looks incredibly dated because it is just really rough polygons on a screen.
Mhm.
But at the time, it was literally unheard of. The only time that you ever had something that was truly polygonal and 3D back in that era was when you were just looking at frames. It would just be a wireframe. You could see right through it. This was able to add texture and just really make something visually three-dimensional, and that was a huge feat back in the 90s.
Well, Sega did have virtual racing, which was all polygons.
Yes, it did.
They did,
Mhm.
that's right.
So they did throw that out there. So they were kind of competing for the same technology.
Were they first or second? Who went first there? Does anybody know?
Hmm.
I don't, to be honest.
I don't, because well, you figure Virtual Fighter and Virtual Racing were arcade titles.
But when
So
Virtual Fighter came over to the Genesis, they just turned it into a 2D fighter.
it
That
was
was.
we don't even talk about that.
Did I
God,
bring up Bruno? Should I not have said that?
it
But
was fine
so
on the Saturn, but it should not, never have been on the Genesis.
agreed 100%.
But virtual racing did come out for the Genesis.
Yeah. So I
Mhm.
wonder if
I
it
have
beat
it.
Star Fox to the market. I'm
Yeah,
curious now.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I want to say Star Fox. I think for the home console beat virtual racing to the market.
And then they made a game that didn't come out until sometime around 2015, I would say. I don't remember years all blend together at this point, but no, maybe it was later. I don't know. The SNES got re-released in the mini format from Nintendo, where an official re-release, an official release of Star Fox 2 happened for the first time ever. And the game was almost complete. Nintendo, I guess, finished it and released it to the public. What are you guys' thoughts on Star Fox 2?
I think it's great that we got it. I'd be perfectly fine if we hadn't, only because I don't think it does anything better than Star Fox does. I think Star Fox is the better game,
Hmm.
but it's so amazing that something that was done for marketing decisions only. They finished it. They realized, we're moving on to the Nintendo 64. We don't need to release this title on the Super Nintendo right now. But the fact that we still got to see it, the fact that
Hmm.
there is a reason to own a mini if you're a game collector, because you already own all the games that are emulated on there, to actually be able to have a copy of Star Fox 2, I think that's pretty cool. But the game itself, nothing all that special.
No, I mean it. We already had Star Fox, and like you said, they were moving on to the 64, which we got Star Fox on anyway, which
Yes.
was great.
Arguably the best version of Star Fox is Star Fox
Hmm.
64.
So
Oh, it's not arguable. It is.
Argument one.
Now, this is another title I haven't played, so I'm going to leave this one up to you guys too. Stunt Race FX. I don't know a single thing about this game.
I
You're
didn't
not
play it
missing too
either.
much. You guys aren't missing too much. It was, again, I kind of put it in the same vein as Star Fox 2, is that it's great that we got it because it gave us a 3D racing game. But to be honest, the Super Nintendo really couldn't handle the processing power needed for it. And so it was always a sluggish game. So it wasn't really all that worth it. So as far as the FX chip goes, that one didn't really give us anything all that powerful. The next title, however, when it comes to the FX chip, was totally worth it.
And that title is Doom, which is an epic,
Doom.
epic game.
And
obviously.
the Super Nintendo version was a pretty darn good release. I mean, Doom came out for everything. I mean, you can play Doom on a home pregnancy test
Hmm.
now, but Doom on the Super Nintendo it was and still is an impressive game. And if it wasn't for the FX chip, we wouldn't be able to do that because it utilized both the Mode 7 and the FX chip simultaneously to give us those 3D environments. And so that was a great first foray into the first person shooter for a Nintendo console.
And it had the red SNES cart. I know that for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, got that sucker sitting on my shelf over there.
I got to get that version of Doom. That's like one of the few versions I don't have.
I could see people being just a Doom collector. You could literally have a whole subset of just Doom.
Or just Doom across multiple consoles.
Oh yeah, different versions.
Now, the next game may be the greatest game of all time, just because of what it packs. Super Mario All Stars, Super Mario 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you get the version that has World, it's probably the greatest cartridge that ever existed. 1, 2, 3, and World, come on. What more could you want in one cartridge?
Oh, that was a stellar release, and for a lot of people, the very first exposure they had to the first 3 Mario games.
I like the graphic style that they chose for it too. It's different obviously than the SNES or I'm sorry than the NES version, but I think it looks better overall. The gameplay was pretty much the same though. I mean, it might have been tweaked a little bit, but it was relatively similar. It just looked better.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The best comparison that I could think of is the Ninja Gaiden trilogy. They went ahead and did a Ninja Gaiden trilogy on the Super Nintendo, and it controls horribly. It is so bad. You are so much
Really,
better off. Oh yeah, you are so much better off going back and playing the old NES version than the Ninja Gaiden trilogy on the Super Nintendo.
that
But
game
All
is uncommon.
Stars,
That game is harder to find. The Super
oh,
Nintendo trilogy.
because I think everybody trashed it because wasn't worth holding on to. But All Stars, I mean, they did such a great job maintaining the quality of the platforming in those games. And Matt, like you said, the upgrade to the graphics, it's very impressive, very well done.
Have you played those versions before, Wes?
For a hot minute.
Okay.
For a hot minute, I was never a big Mario person. So it's like I played it for a minute and then it was kind of went back to Sega or something else.
That's not a surprise.
Not to keep pitching ideas, but in another episode, Wes, I think you need to make your top 5 Mario games. Since you're not a big Mario person, I would love to see how you would rank like just your top 5 favorites.
Like as great as Super Mario 64 was, I think I played it. I got 2 stars and I never touched it again.
What?
That's practically blasphemous, man.
Wes.
And it was fantastic. But I just I know.
That I mean
Anyway, our next game.
no.
You can't move on.
Look, Wes, out of all the games I could ever recommend you, that is the one game you need to play. Like that is my favorite Mario game by far. Like by far. Like people talk about Odyssey being so amazing, and it was good. It was not Mario 64. It was not Mario 64. Wes, you got to play my God, you got to play Mario 64, Wes. Anyway, Super
Moving
Metroid
on.
is cool. I like that quite a bit also.
Super Metroid is awesome.
It is.
It
Super
is.
Metroid is my favorite Metroid entry.
My choice was this t-shirt or my Super Metroid t-shirt. I went with this one just to stay true to, me. And that this was the game I played the most on the SNES, but Super Metroid's so badass, man. What a great game.
That was great. Yeah, it was really, really good.
It's truly the birth of the Metroidvania as a genre.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the original 2 Metroid games still had the exploration, still had the backtracking, but it was Super Metroid that really perfected that, making the different areas look different, feel different. The power-ups were amazing. The bosses were great.
You kind of figure out where you're going and not want to kill yourself. That part was great too. Having a
there
map.
was a map when you
cool.
hit the boss spot, right? I have almost no notes for Super Metroid. Just an incredible game all around.
Yeah. I remember playing the first Metroid and just being constantly lost and annoyed all the time. I know there was like and at the time I didn't know because I was a stupid little kid, but there was a Nintendo Power that had like a map printed out or something on it where you could like actually figure out where the hell you're going. That would have been helpful if they, I don't know, put that in the box
I,
or put it
I
on the
had a
screen.
I had a Nintendo Player's Guide when I was a kid. When I first got my NES, it came with the Nintendo Player's Guide, which is a big black strategy guidebook, had tons of maps, all different games. My parents found out that there was the action set that came with the light gun and with the power pad, and they made me return my Nintendo that had that guide in it. And I bawled like a little baby because I lost that book
Oh
because it had
man,
the map for Metroid in it, and I could never figure out where I was going without it.
Oh man.
that's a horrible thing to lose. My God,
Oh, I was devastated. But I got Duck Hunt and a Zapper, so I mean, I can't really complain.
and Duck Hunt's awesome too. Link to the Past. Many would say the best Zelda game of all time. Not me, but many.
I am one of those people. Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game. Don't get me
I can
wrong,
see it.
I understand the arguments for so many others, and I can't necessarily say that my opinion is the correct opinion. But that game was it's just so immersive. The light and dark world, the backstory of Ganon, it was
The graphics were beautiful.
oh yes.
Music was spectacular.
My critique. Why does Link have pink hair?
Rock and roll, man. This is the 90s.
Of all the versions of Link, for some reason the Super Nintendo one has pink hair. It's just so weird.
I don't know. Could have been that CRT,
Well, that's supposedly the color it's supposed to be. But I mean, no judgment. I just think it's weird.
I think that it's a great game. And to be fair, I never finished the game. Played it multiple times, many times. I'd never finished the game. Probably a black eye for me, but uh, I bet you if I went back and I played it, it's still I know it wouldn't be my favorite because I've already played it. It would probably be my second favorite or third favorite, somewhere around there. Excellent Zelda title. Can't go wrong.
I'm with you. I didn't finish it either, but I did play it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And here's what I'm going to give Nintendo. I'm tired. I'm just going to go quick rant real fast. All these people coming out of the woodwork. Zelda 2 was such a great game. There's a reason they made it different on Super Nintendo. There's a reason. No one liked Zelda 2. Get over it. It wasn't a great game. It was whatever. It was
They
not
went
Zelda
back to
1.
the original formula.
Right. There's a reason they changed it. So you can keep thinking Zelda 2 is great. You're wrong. It's okay. I'm just trying to get people to come after me today. That's all.
You might succeed.
Oh no, this is a sweet ass game. We talked about the graphical change with Star Fox, how it was polygonal, how they used the Super FX chip. I mean, whatever the hell Rare was doing over there with Donkey Kong Country, my God, I'd never seen anything look like that before.
Never.
It breathed new life into the console. Because I honestly feel like the Super Nintendo would have went completely downhill at this point because all the new systems were on the horizon, and then Rare does this beautiful scan of 3D images and finds a way to animate it. And really, especially on a CRTV, because if you play it nowadays on a flat screen, on an LED, it does not look the same. But if you play Donkey Kong Country the way it was originally intended to be played, there was nothing that looked that good. It was stellar. People were blown away that something like that was on the Super Nintendo.
Yep, I remember powering it up for the first time, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what are we playing?" It looked, well, for CG. It looked almost CG. Just the technique that they used to create the graphics, and Donkey Kong was just such a good game. Such a good game.
Oh yeah, all the secrets that were in it too. Like it wasn't just a graphical powerhouse. The game had personality. Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, the way they reacted to things when they got hit, when they stood there and waited too long, when they tag teamed each other to swap players, all of it was just so vivid. You felt like you were really living in that jungle. It was so.
And the music brought it all together. The music was spectacular. I mean, that first Donkey Kong Country soundtrack is like a 10 out of 10, easily.
Oh, definitely. The underwater world, probably one of the only times in my life I was okay with playing an underwater stage because that music was so beautiful. I didn't care that I was having to swim.
Yeah, when Nintendo released their music app, if you have the Switch Online, I think that was the first thing I put on was the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack. Or maybe I
Good
didn't.
choice.
It may not even not have been in there originally because I didn't download it for like a few weeks like after it released. But when I went in there, I was like, oh, Donkey Kong Country. All right, let's play this.
Yeah, that was great all around. Soundtrack, gameplay, graphics, so impressive.
And then there's the three Kirby games, two Kirby games. I know there's at least two.
The way they did Kirby on the Super Nintendo was so weird because there's the Superstar collection. So you
Yes.
got a ton of Kirby stuff on one. And then you have the spin-offs because you got the Dream Course, so now you can play golf with Kirby. And then you
Yeah.
have the puzzle attack and Kirby was there in every which way or form you could possibly imagine. So Kirby really represented when it came to the Super Nintendo. None of his games were, chart busters or anything. They didn't sell incredibly well, but they all held their own and they brought that little bit of charm that Nintendo is known for.
Yeah, I didn't get into Kirby till later, which I do like Kirby quite a bit now. But back then, it was all about Mario. What
Well,
about you, Wes?
Kirby was geared towards a younger audience. So
For sure. I would have been like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. I didn't care at that point.
Never played a Kirby game.
Not a surprise. If you didn't play a friggin' Mario game, you never played a Kirby game. You know how mad I would be right now if he's like, oh, I played like every Kirby game. You didn't play Mario 64? Oh my, Wes, I would
love
fly to New
that.
Jersey and punch in the face.
Wes, if you came out and said you 100%ed Forgotten Lands, I would have lost it, man.
To this day, I've never ever played a Kirby game.
They're fun little games. You're not missing a lot, Wes.
I know.
Well, and again, it's because it's geared towards younger kids. They were really looking at like the early elementary school crowd with those Kirby games to give them a chance to be able to play without dying every 3 seconds.
Then we have a unique game, which I'm sure there's a bunch of different games that try to rip this off, but this was the OG ActRaiser that mixed strategy and I guess you'd call it like an action platformer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, ActRaiser was a different beast. ActRaiser was one of my brother's favorite games for the console. And while the action sections are fun, for some reason when they made the sequel, that's all they focused on. They got rid of the simulation part and just went straight to the action. But it was always the simulation, the strategy type side that my brother just absolutely adored. You beat the first level, you go down to the planet, and you help these people develop their town. You help them find resources. You help them fight off little, demonic creatures like bats and little demons that are shooting lightning at their town and whatnot. It's almost like a version of Sim City. It's a really unique game. You've never really seen it replicated the same way that ActRaiser pulled it off.
Was your brother older than you?
Younger. He was about 3 years younger than me.
Okay, that's surprising. You would think that would be like the city building sections would be more geared towards older people than.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that was their target audience. My brother was always quirky that way. He always like the more obscure type titles, so it didn't surprise me any that he was gravitating towards that section of ActRaiser.
What about you, Wes? You got familiarity with this one?
ActRaiser, nope. I saw strategy and I stayed away from it.
I'm sure you both played this. Wes, I know you have. So,
Oh,
Wes,
yeah.
why don't you kick this one off, man?
Chrono Trigger. Fantastic game. And the reason I picked it up is because the art director, Akira Toriyama, who's well known for Dragon Ball, because I was into Dragon Ball back then, and I knew his art style, and I saw it and had to buy it. Knew it was an RPG, didn't care. I saw his art, I had to buy it. And it turned out it was really good.
Yeah, some people call this the best. Would say it's the best RPG on the SNES.
I prefer that over the Final Fantasy.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Okay. What about you, Brian? What do you think?
I can't put it above Final Fantasy VI, but it definitely I definitely understand anyone's argument for putting it at their top Super Nintendo role playing game. The art style, as you mentioned, Wes, absolutely beautiful, and the story, the way that they integrate the time travel throughout the gameplay, it's really well done, and it keeps you engaged the entire time. Like you'd think with a JRPG there'd be areas that lag, that you just feel like, all right, can we
Mhm.
move this along? Can we get the pace going here? Chrono Trigger doesn't have any of that. It's constantly moving. There's constantly stuff going on. It's yeah, it's everything people say it is.
It is. It really is. And it's a little pricey now to try to find it. If you're looking for a complete in box, it's crazy
It
expensive.
is. I saw one on Facebook Marketplace the other day. I was like, "What the hell?" I was like, "What?" And then I like looked it up. I was like, "Oh, no, that's what it's going for. That's insane."
My recommendation, if someone wants to play the game, look for the DS version.
Oh,
It's
there you go.
cheaper. Still
Mhm.
not cheap, but it's cheaper. And it's a great experience. I really enjoyed playing it on the DS.
Was that a solo release in the DS, or was it in like a compilation with other stuff?
It was solo.
Okay.
Yeah, they literally
Mhm.
re-released the game. They tweaked some things, integrated the touchscreen for your menus and whatnot. It's a great release of the product. It really is good. It does Chrono Trigger justice.
If
Cool.
you want it, pick it up now. All those DS games are going up in price, man. All of them. Especially if it's an RPG, it's going up in price. On like you needed to buy it yesterday, but even if you buy it today, it's just going to be worth more in the next few years. So if you want an RPG in the DS, go pick it up. I'm not in Wes. Go. This is your game, sir, not mine.
Oh man, yeah. Okay. You can't talk about Super Nintendo unless you talk about Killer Instinct.
The black cartridge.
The black cartridge with the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It
That's
came.
right.
It came with the CD soundtrack of the game, and everybody knows I love my fighters. So yeah, Killer Instinct. Played it in the arcade. Super excited when I heard it was coming out for Super Nintendo. Yeah, you know, as far as comparison, graphically, it suffers. It suffers, but it sounds really good. It plays well. It doesn't look like the arcade or the 64 version, but still, it's Killer Instinct.
Well, the 64 version was very expensive when it came out. I clearly remember that being like $100 game or something. Was the SNES version that came with that soundtrack like also $100
I
or
I
a more
want to say
expensive one?
I want to say it was like 69.99 when
Really?
back in the day. It was
That's
pretty pricey.
that's that's pretty good. I think that most of the SNES games were probably around $60 or $70 at that point. So I'm surprised that it came with a soundtrack that it wasn't more.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it was like 69.99 because I think Super Nintendo games on average were about 49.99, 39.99.
Were they really? They were that
It
cheap?
it really depends when you're picking it up and
Okay.
what type of game it
Mm-hmm.
was. That was always the drawback to cartridges, that if it used, more memory, or if they had to
Mm-hmm.
add extra chips, they pass that fee on to the consumer. So a
Yeah.
lot of your JRPGs were like 80-90 bucks a pop. But yeah, if you could get that Killer Instinct, such a great game with a soundtrack, and it was only running like 60-70 bucks, I'd say that's a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, Killer Instinct Gold or whatever it was on N64. That game was either $90 or $100. Like, and it just came, as far as I know, it just came with the cartridge in the box. But for whatever
That was
reason,
it.
that was
That
like
was
one of the most expensive N64 games that was released.
that was it. You just got the game.
Well, it was essentially a straight port of the arcade, wasn't it?
The
The Killer
64
Instinct
version.
Gold. It was pretty much I know it wasn't exactly a port, but the game itself was just like the arcade version, or at least my memory says that.
I don't remember. I did play it, but I don't remember. It's been
It
ages.
Yeah, it wasn't an exact port because they had Killer Instinct 2 in the arcade. So I think Gold incorporated, parts of 1 and 2 together, if my memory serves me
Gotcha.
correctly. It strayed more closer to 2.
Okay, that's cool. That's a smart thing to do, though. Take like the best of one and two, mix them together. Here you go.
Right.
Makes sense to me. Mega Man X series, a fine Mega Man series.
It is indeed.
Someone's gonna come after me so bad.
It was good. X was good.
I enjoyed X. I
X
loved the
was
fact that if you played X and you played the stages in a different order, it literally impacted how the game was played. So if you play the original Mega Man X and you defeat the ice stage first, when you go to play the fire elephant stage, the fire in the game is actually toned down. Most of the areas where the fire's blasting up through the gaps and whatnot, it's not there because of the fact that you defeated Chill Penguin beforehand. Like, they literally changed the way that the game works.
I didn't
And
know that.
I love the fact that it was that in depth.
That's pretty
It was a
cool.
unique twist on the whole choose your own adventure kind of game that Mega Man's always been.
Yeah, I never realized that. That's awesome.
I didn't know that at all. I just enjoyed the games.
Yeah, the first 6. the X series is fine.
X is fine.
I just prefer the OG ones. That's all.
I get that, but it was a step up in graphics. I would love to say a step up in sound, but I'll have to kind of agree with you on that one, Matt. The original NES games, the soundtracks were amazing on those.
Yeah.
So, but
I just like the art style and everything. Like the Mega Man X series, we just got like 2 anime and stuff. I was like, dude, what happened, man? Where's my little Mega Man guy at?
You didn't like being able to do reuse Fireball in a X-Men game?
I don't know.
It was Capcom cross promoting.
At least they weren't like Mega Man X 1.5, Mega Man X 1.7 trying to re-release the same damn thing like 15 times that they do with Street Fighter.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. I mean, going off on a tangent, did anybody watch Secret Level?
No.
On Amazon? It's an anthology series based on video games. And each episode is like 15 minutes.
I know what you're talking about, but I've never seen it.
Awesome series. But there's a Mega Man one in there because you talked about the OG. There's a Mega Man one in there that's really good.
And they use the OG?
They use the OG.
That's right. See, because they know it's better. If X was better, they would have used X. I'm sorry, just speaking the truth.
I think it's funny that they've made so many Mega Man games, and yet the Mega Man games really don't sell all that well.
But
people don't buy a ton of Mega Man games when they come out. It's actually a very niche audience for those games. But
I think I bought.
I'm one of the ones that buys them. I love them. Right? Well, I think they just see it as a way to cash. They go ahead and they do the collection, and those that love it, those that are the diehard fans, like, I mean, maybe some of us in this chat right now, would go ahead and buy the collection, and so they know they got our money.
Or they turn around and give us Mighty Number 9.
Well, that wasn't them. That was
no.
Inafune went over there and he
tried to recreate it.
He tried.
If you guys don't want to talk about Virtua Fire on the Genesis, I don't want to talk about Mighty Number
9. Fair enough. Secret of Mana. Mana. I've heard it say so many different ways. It's M-N-A. M-A-N-A. Sorry, I can't even read. M-A-N-A. Mana or Mana? What do we
say Mana. I don't know if it's right. I've always said Mana.
I've always said Mana.
We got 2 Manas. Okay. I'll leave it. I have no idea. Don't know anything about this one. Go ahead, guys.
Action RPG. So the parts of RPGs that you don't like are gone in this
Really?
one.
I was not even aware of that.
Yeah, the entire Mana series. Well, I shouldn't say that. Mana series does change from title to title slightly, but the Secret of Mana series basically is this giant sprawling adventure that plays out the same way that a role-playing game would, where you're playing as these specific characters, where you're trying to go ahead and unfold this long in-depth story, but the action is like a Zelda game. It's got a little bit of hack and slash going on there.
That's awesome.
You could actually play it with up to 3 players.
I mean, that's even cooler. That's fantastic.
If you want to buy a tap.
No, not doing that. Did you play this one, Wes?
A little bit. It's good, but it's one of those time-consuming games, and at the time there was a bunch of stuff coming out, so I didn't really complete it. I think I played so many hours and then kind of got diverted and played something else.
Like Super Punch-Out? Did you play that?
That I did.
Tell me about Super Punch-Out, Wes.
I did. Everybody was coming off the hype of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and so it already had a name for itself. So Punch-Out is just fun. It's just a fun boxing game.
But no Little Mac.
No Little Mac.
I was going to ask whether or not we were calling him Little Mac, but yeah, he's pretty much a different character in this game.
Yeah, well,
They went to the arcade roots. In the arcade, it was the see-through stencil of a guy, where basically using the grid system, like we were talking before with games before Star Fox.
You know who my favorite boxer is, Wes?
Oh.
See-through stencil guy. That's my favorite boxer ever. Why don't you have a character? I know you see through him. Who cares? Pull the camera out after the match, show you Little Mac. That's what everybody wants. Or maybe a bigger version. Call him Big Mac. Get sued by McDonald's. How about that? Or have a partnership. He can be pounding Big Macs in between his fights.
Big Mac is what he becomes in a Smash Brothers when he gets the Smash Ball.
But yes, Punch Out's great. I mean, if you played Punch Out, it's Punch Out. It's fantastic. Looks pretty. That's Punch Out. Final fight. We're talking about the first one here, correct, Wes?
Correct.
Now, what's the difference between the three of them? There's three on the SNES, right? Is there any major differences between the three of them?
Yes, the characters. Well, first of all, this was a single player. Final Fight in the arcade was a 2-player game. When it came out for the Super Nintendo, they took out the 2-player mode.
That sounds like a mistake.
It's a single player, but you could play as the 3 characters: Guy, Cody, and Hagar.
And this isn't a head-to-head fighting game. This is like a
side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Okay.
Could you play as Guy in the original release? I thought that was the Blockbuster rental exclusive.
Correct. Right. You were correct.
So Blockbuster had an exclusive character?
Yes, there was another, because there were 3 characters: Guy, Cody, and Hagar. But yeah, for the Super Nintendo one, you could not play as Guy. They had a Final Fight Guy version, like he said, for Blockbuster.
How hard is that to find?
It's pretty tricky.
Yeah.
And it goes for a pretty penny.
Yeah, I bet it does. Stupid Blockbuster. Still holding and wielding their power to this day.
And then Final Fight 2 and 3, same style of gameplay. They altered the characters, added some new characters. Final Fight 3 is actually pretty pricey, if you can find it.
We should do a segment on the Blockbuster exclusive stuff. There was that 64 Sculptor's Cut. You know, there's probably been a bunch of them. We could talk about how ridiculous some of that stuff is to find. There was also versions of tournament stuff that they did with Nintendo. Like, I think there's a Donkey Kong Country or something like that tournament version that was only available in Blockbuster that's super hard to find. That would be cool to do. We should do that one day.
That Sculptor's Cut is the only repro cart that I have in my collection because I refuse to pay $1,000 for a cart-only version of a bad fighting game.
It's called Sculptor's Cut 63 1/3. Isn't there something else to it, right?
It's Clay Fighter 63 1/3, and then Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut.
Got it.
Sculptor's Cut is the Blockbuster exclusive version.
Got it. Yeah, those, I don't know that anybody even has them because I check the price on those every once in a while, and the ones that come with complete in box, I haven't seen the price move in forever. So either they're so hard to find or like nobody has them that like they just never sell because the price is just always the same.
Well, that's the catch with the rental copies because most of the boxes got thrown away, so there's hardly any of them out there. Card only is probably the only way most people are going to get their hands on it.
For sure. We're going to go back to where we started. Street Fighter 2 Turbo. We're going to talk about the Turbo version, which was the version that had... Go ahead, Wes.
It had the option to turn the speed up.
Cool. And didn't it have different characters, or was it the same?
Same characters, but you could play as the boss characters.
You could play as the boss character. Okay. Got it. So it was, what, M. Bison and...
Vega.
Okay, Vega.
Scott. Yep.
And Balrog.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was the one complaint. Everybody, as great as Street Fighter, the original one was, everybody said it played slow. So then they came out with Turbo, which allowed you to speed up the actions, so to speak.
Genesis could have used that version, that's for sure.
Well, Genesis got the Champion Edition, which lets you play as the bosses.
Slow as hell. That thing was like 5 frames, man. I remember that. I still loved it because it was all we had.
It's all we had.
So rough.
But it was it was not the better version, that's for damn sure. Man. Yeah, so if you get Street Fighter, you definitely want to get the turbo version. Absolutely.
Yes.
Super Street Fighter 2 isn't too shabby on the Super Nintendo.
No, it was not.
That's the one that adds the extra 4 characters.
Correct. But the brand new characters, DJ, was it T-Hawk and
Cammy.
can't yeah,
Somebody else.
Fei Long?
Yes.
There you go, Wes. Pulling that one out. No way I would have remembered that.
Me neither.